Black Widow is the latest Marvel Studios film to come out. Was originally slated for release back, I think, in spring of 2020, but then with COVID was pushed to fall of 2020 and then pushed again now to spring or summer 2021. It's directed by Cate Shortland, who really comes from an indie background, most notably, I think, for Berlin Syndrome. But this is her first big feature, high budget film. Runtime of 2 hours, 13 minutes. Scarlett Johansson steps up as an executive producer on this film, so she had a lot of say in really trying to make this film get made over the past, well, for a long time, I think even before COVID. So she's exec producer, and then Eric Pearson is a screenwriter. He previously worked on Godzilla vs. Kong and on Thor Ragnarok. So the positives: casting, as always, is great. Sarah Haley Finn has done the casting for Marvel Studios films, I think, since day one, since Iron Man, and she continues to knock it out of the park. There's a lot of standout performances in this movie. Johansson probably gets her best turn as this character, I think, to date. And then Florence Pugh from Midsommar and Fighting with My Family, she comes in as Yelena. And she is a major standout in this movie. She's great. Hopefully setting her up as a front runner in the future of the MCU. So I'm very excited to see her in future projects. She had great comedic timing. A lot of the laughs go to her. And I could tell that the audience really enjoyed her character a lot. Some impressive set pieces as well. I mean, this is Black Widow, so it's more like a James Bond, like Mission Impossible action, big set pieces. So, I mean, those are pretty impressive overall. And then the whole film really works as like a good tribute, send off to Natasha. Spoilers for Avengers Endgame, but if you haven't seen that, what are you doing? It's been 2 years. Go watch it. So this movie is tricky because it does take place after Natasha. Well, it's a prequel, so it takes place before, but the audience knows that Natasha dies in Endgame. And so it's tough to make a prequel when you already know the ultimate result of this character, of where this character ends up. And it's 6 feet under. So this film really serves as a good tribute and send-off for the character. But unfortunately, onto the negatives, I do feel like this movie came out way too late, and not just because of COVID. I think it could have come out. I'll always wonder what a Black Widow solo movie would have been like if it came out in phase one, back when you first had Iron Man, Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, and Captain America, before that first Avengers movie. I think that it would have been more interesting maybe to get this type of story back then. Granted, there are some details here. This film does take place between Civil War and Infinity War, so it kind of fills in that empty gap of what was going on with Natasha when she was a fugitive after the events of Captain America Civil War. So I do think that maybe this film could have come out in release order after Civil War, and it would have been just as fine. I think one of the negatives here is, where does this really line up as far as the importance of seeing it in the overall series? A lot of the story comes off, unfortunately, as a little bit irrelevant, unless you're a really big fan of this character. And the character is great, but I just think that she could have been serviced with a better, more important story than what we got, especially given the delay in getting this movie out. But it does set up the future of the MCU pretty nicely. I'm excited for some of these future projects, TV shows, and movies coming forward. So we'll see. The first act of this is a bit meandering, and it takes a while, actually, to state what the plot really is and what Natasha's mission is going to be. But once that is established, maybe like 30-40 minutes in, then it kind of ramps up a bit. Some of the choreography is edited very quickly, making it difficult to appreciate the work that the stunt crew put in. But again, the action, you can tell that they put in the work. It's just that it's cut so quickly that it's tough to follow sometimes. The villains in this do kind of fall on the weaker tier, I think, in the overall grand scheme of the villains in the MCU. Granted, there only have been a few real big standouts in those movies, but these are on the weaker side. It is cool to see Taskmaster brought to life, on the screen from the page. The costume's cool. Some of the moves are cool, but I think just as far as characterization goes in writing, that Taskmaster and Ray Winstone's character Dreykov, they're a bit weaker. And I will say, Dreykov in Act 3 has one of the dumbest plot points, I think, in lines of dialogue that I've heard in an MCU movie. So it's a bit out there. It's far-fetched, and it's a comic book film, granted, but it still took me out of the movie. You'll probably understand when you see it. Action scenes are a little bit too reliant on CGI, which normally I would expect with this type of movie in the MCU, in a comic book big budget superhero film. Granted, I think the effects could have been a lot more practical and grounded given these characters. Natasha does not have super abilities or anything like that. She's a regular human, but she's taking part in these big CGI heavy action scenes and getting tossed around like a rag doll, and she's fine. So I think it could have been a little bit more grounded, and I would have appreciated that some. And then, like I said, the story just feels a little irrelevant coming this late. It doesn't feel like this is a Black Widow movie that the studio really wanted to make from day one. It feels more like, oh, okay, fans have really wanted this. Let's make a Black Widow movie now, after we already know that she dies in Avengers Endgame. And so it's a hodgepodge of, yeah, there's some good, there's some bad, but, it's okay. I think the character could have been serviced better, but, we'll see where this goes. The ending does set up the future of the MCU nicely, so I'm excited to see where it goes from here. Kevin Feige, the producer of Marvel Studios, has said that, he's looking forward to working with Johansson in the future, whether that's as an actress or as a producer. I think Johansson would love to probably stay on and help shepherd Black Widow's history and legacy forward into the MCU. So we'll see where it goes. I'm excited for the future. When it comes to grading, I would probably give this about a C, or 2.5 out of 5 stars, however your preference is for grading. Go check it out. If you're a fan of the MCU, obviously you're going to see it either in theaters or on Disney Plus for the extra $30. But I will say it is worth seeing on the big screen. There is some IMAX footage. My friends and I didn't see it in IMAX, but that is an option as well. So go check it out. Let me know what you think, and enjoy the movies.